All right. Anybody who's living in California throughout this last winter definitely knows it's been a great winter in terms of rain and snow, and in terms of improving the drought monitor, bringing a lot of moisture back into our fuels, which is going to help us next wildfire season. And the drought monitor this week had a huge update. So I just thought it'd be a good time to go through the water situation in California. We'll look at not only the updated drought monitor, we'll look at how much it's changed over the last week, the last few months. We're also going to look at how much rainfall we've picked up compared to usual years, break it down by the exact city, check out some of our reservoirs, and then finally, saving best for last, looking at some of the snow totals that we have. But just looking at the drought monitor, again, this is the best that we've seen the drought monitor look in quite some time. Usually we have a burgundy color on this map, that's exceptional drought. 0% of the state's in exceptional drought. Now 0% of the state is in extreme drought. We do still have 25% in severe drought. It looks like it's the very northeastern and the very southeastern portions of the state. But the key thing that I notice is that we now have portions that aren't even abnormally dry anymore. Abnormally dry is the yellow color, and 83% of the state's abnormally dry. But you notice stretching almost up into the Sierra and then along the coast from Santa Cruz down through Santa Barbara, we're that white color, which represents no drought category whatsoever. So that is a huge update right there, and great to see. So if we actually want to break down the numbers when it comes to the changes that we've seen, best way to look at it is this chart right here, and I'll maybe zoom in a little bit so you can see better. Let's look at 3 months ago right here, and then let's look at exceptional drought, the burgundy color. 12% was in exceptional drought 3 months ago, now 0. 41% was in extreme drought, now that's at 0. 3 months ago, 85% of the state was in severe drought, now that's at 25, so a huge improvement there. And then I also noticed just in the last week, we went from 32% in severe drought down to 25%. So a big update just in the last week, and that's because we picked up a lot of rain and snow between the months of December and February that have just continued to improve the drought situation. I think the best visual way to see the improvement in this last week is to look at the 1 week drought change monitor. The light green color means a 1 class improvement. So going back to this chart right here, that would mean you went from severe drought to moderate drought. That would be a 1 class improvement. A 2 class improvement would be extreme drought to moderate drought. So clicking back over here, where we have the light green, that's where we had a 1 class improvement. You notice a lot of the central coast stretching down to Santa Barbara. That's where we went from abnormally dry to no drought classification whatsoever. And then the 2 class improvements are more in the center of the state, stretching up into the Sierra, which makes sense because we have picked up a lot of rain and snow there over this last 3 months, really. And you'll be able to see that when we look at the rainfall totals in a second. This also shows it perfectly. In the center of the state is where we have a 5 class improvement. So just looking back here, that would mean you went from exceptional drought to no drought category whatsoever. So that is great to see. Although I do notice not as much in the northeastern section and the southeastern sections of the state. It looks like a lot of that moisture that we were picking up was more towards the center. So it makes sense why we do still have our 25% of severe drought is in those areas that didn't seem to pick up as much rainfall. Now, I would say an even better way to see that is to look at percent of average precipitation. We'll just slow down here and break this down to see exactly what we're looking at. So percent of average precipitation. That means we're comparing how much rain we actually picked up to how much rain we would normally see in a given year. So if you expect 10 inches of rain and you got 10, that would be 100% of average precipitation. If you picked up 20, that'd be 200%. So looking at this, we can see this goes from, I believe it's October to basically the current day. And then the colors represent your percent of average precipitation. Below, so yellow to red is going to be where you're below average. Green to purple is where you're going to be above average. And purple is where you're going to be well above average of your average precipitation. So just looking at this, this also paints the picture why especially the southeastern and the northeastern portions of the state haven't seen as much drought improvement. It's been an alright year in the northeastern portions of the state. It looks like we're in that green, which is about 100 to 120% of our average precipitation. But down on the very southeastern portions of the state, it actually looks like we've picked up less precipitation this year than you typically see. Now, I saved the best for last on this map right here because I just want to really look at the center of the state that is covered in this blue and purple. Looking at the bright purple, that would be more than 300% of your average precipitation. The dark purple, which covers almost the entire center of the state, that is from 150 to 200% of your average precipitation. So now, if we actually want to break it down by city, we'll just look at some of the key cities here. I know there's a lot on this chart right here, so you don't need to look at everything. What we're going to be looking at is this, you can't really do it, is this column right here. That's how much rainfall we've actually picked up. And then you're comparing that to how much you would see in a normal year. And then the number that's the most important is percent of normal. So just going into San Francisco, for example, we would normally see 17 inches in a year. We ended up picking up 25 inches, so that's about 150% of our average precipitation. Now coming down to the Central Coast, if we look at, let's pick one of the good ones. We can look at Santa Maria. So that normally would have 9 inches of rain. This year we've picked up 18, so that's about 200% of their average rainfall. And then coming down to another big city, let's look at LAX. That normally has 9.5. We've picked up 16, so about 170% of our average rainfall. So the basic summary there is we've picked up more rain than we typically see in a normal year. So you have to imagine that's been helping with our reservoirs, and it certainly has. I remember in one big storm this last year, the reservoir that's closest to my house doubled. It went from, I think, 18% to 36%. And then after 2 more storms, it was at 100%. It was incredible to see. And I drove by it just the other day, and it was incredible to see it in real life. So before, it looked like it was completely dried up. It looked like it was like an old, forgotten lake. And now it's the highest I've maybe seen it ever. It looks like it's about to almost overflow. But let's just zoom into some of the big ones here. This is Shasta. Looks like that one's at 76% of normal. And then if we look at percent capacity, we're at about 61% for capacity. And then we could just look at these reservoirs all day long, but instead we're just going to check out the season snow totals. So coming in here, Sierra Tahoe's annual average snowfall is 400 plus inches. And this year, it looks like at 7,300 feet, we've picked up 362. And then at 8,800 feet, we've picked up 521. So at first glance, you might be saying, oh, 362, that's less than 400. It's a bad year. But you also have to remember that the snowfall season isn't over yet. So we still have a couple of months to still pick up some more snow. I think this map explains it better than anything. So just breaking down the months here. Blue is November. Red is December. Orange is January. That means green is going to be February. Purple is March. So looking at where we are, 22, 23, we have certainly picked up more than we picked up in 2019 and 2020. And we're ahead of schedule when you compare it to all the other years that we're looking at right here. the way I'd figure that out is if you compare where March begins, so where our purple begins, we're already higher up. We're at 521 right now. Whereas when March began in 2018 looked like a good year, we were at maybe 252 and then 74 in 2016, 2017. So, yeah, no, that's actually just showing how much we picked up per month. But basically what I'm saying is we are seeing more snowfall this season than we've seen in the last maybe 10 years. And we still are going to pick up another chunk of snow in the month of March. It looks like we have a couple more big storms on the way. And then looks like we don't always see snow in April, but given how this year has been, I wouldn't rule it out that we do end up seeing some more snow. So overall, I'd say the key graphic that we want to look at here one more time is just the drought chain or the drought monitor for California, because it's the first time in a long time we've seen large portions of the state completely out of any drought category, and 0% of the state is even in extreme drought anymore. 25% in severe drought still, but we still have a few more storms on the way where we're going to continue to see some improvement. So hopefully you learned something throughout the course of this video. I know I did, and thanks for watching.